Jeff, good to be with you again, man. Today we're talking a little bit about origin stories. So the question today is, what inspired you to pursue a career in sales? I'd love to hear your journey. How'd you get started and why?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Carson. Happy to share the story. It was kind of something I fell into, to be perfectly honest. But when I was growing up, I think there were all sorts of different things I wanted to do. As a little kid, I think I wanted to be a professional athlete, and then that dream died fairly quickly. And I think played around with other things that I had pets growing up. I think veterinarian was an idea out there, and all sorts of other things. But I made my way to college. I think candidly, I lacked a lot of intentionality. A lot of kids I went to school with came in with a plan. I was fortunate. I went to a good school. I went to Princeton for my undergrad, so I was surrounded by a lot of type A personalities. But a lot of these kids were in there knowing that they wanted to be doctors or lawyers or working on Wall Street or consulting and stuff like that. Going into tech sales wasn't really something that was um, made available there or talked about, and it was certainly very uncommon and rare for people to get into it. And I remember being in some of these interviews for consulting firms and banking jobs. I was an English major, and I think they were like laughing at me in some of these interviews, like, "Why are you here?" So I was all over the place. I looked at some jobs in teaching. I looked at jobs in sports because I had worked for the Boston Red Sox in college and in high school. But then I remember I saw a job posting for a sales job. It was a tech company in Boston that would many years later get acquired for $400 million by Grubhub. And the job posting said, the harder you work, the more money that you'll make. And that really struck a chord with me. And it wasn't because, I'm financially motivated. I think everybody's financially motivated. It was more so because I liked the idea that the ball was in my hands and that it was up to me. And I'm a competitive person. I believed in my work ethic. And, I liked the idea that it was not like the analogy I used to use was like, it's not like going to work and someone puts a stack of papers on your desk and when you're done with it, you can go home. I felt like sales was like kind of you put the stack of papers on the desk, you dictate how much work needs to be done, and you kind of set your own schedule. So I really liked that. The other thing too is that I'm kind of a stubborn guy. A lot of my friends thought I should be a lawyer, for that reason, because I was, good at winning arguments. And then when I got into sales, they were like, "Oh, that makes sense too." So that's kind of how I fell into it. The rest is history. It's something that's worked out really well for me. I think just because I like to work autonomously and kind of do my own thing and work hard and build relationships. And so that's how I fell into sales. Haven't looked back, and I'm happy it worked out the way it did. So that's my story. Would love to hear yours.
Yeah, man. It's funny while you were talking, I was reminded of the Steve Jobs quote. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs and the square holes. And I'll kind of paraphrase, but he kind of sums up with the only thing you can't do is ignore them because they change things. And it's funny. I think there's a lot of accidental salespeople out there. Very similar to you. I had no idea what I wanted to do for a long time in my, college career. In fact, when I graduated, I was working behind the meat counter at a grocery store, and I moved to be an assistant manager at the time where a couple people I was close to in my life moved to St. Louis, and that's what kind of brought me here. And I got an interview for a role that was actually a friend of mine's aunt worked at this organization, and I got an interview there, and I thought it was just going to be like a customer service phone job, and I was wrong. It was a pretty rough sales job. Of the 12 people in training, only two made it out, and I was one of them. And it's because I had no choice. The people that were in the training group, multiple of them were from inside the company. And so they had what was called retreat rights. So they could go back to their old job. They were that terrified of doing this job. I mean, and it was an inbound at the beginning, it was an inbound business call center, which would have been probably better in some ways, where it was, business customers calling in needing things for their business. But then we mid training got morphed into a residential call center. So customers calling in complaining about their bill, and we had to turn around and sell them stuff. So I had to learn real quick how to get good at that. I remember trying to memorize this script. And like I just closed my eyes on this, saying this diatribe, and this customer said yes. And then that begat a dizzying trail in sales. Moved up rapidly in that organization, spent several years in telecommunications sales, then advertising sales, retail sales, and wireless, and then tech sales for the last decade. And it's been an incredible journey. I will say, like, I even tried to leave it once. Um, but it drew me back in, and I think there were a few reasons. It was the people that I was able to meet, people that I was able to interact with, the network, the relationships that I had made as a result. The financial compensation was incredible. I mean, I was a small town kid working at a grocery store, and to suddenly be catapulted into making like 5 times what I was making before, and then doubling that, and then doubling that, and then doubling that. I mean, it was just unheard of. And it's just been an incredible journey. And I look at all the people that I've met throughout the years, friends, even my wife that I met, through a sales role, because I interviewed her actually 18 years ago this coming month. And she got the job, needless to say. But just it's been such a rewarding journey. Everything that you could possibly want out of life, you can get from a sales career. The relationships, the financial compensation, the benefits, the structure. If you're good at it, there's always a job for you. And frankly, at the same time, you can also get a lot of reward and fulfillment. So that's what inspired me to be in sales and stay in sales.
Love it. Love it. You started in the call center, and now you work at Microsoft, and it's a great story.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the comparison and contrast, the one call close, pound the phone environment to long sales cycle enterprise tech sales. But I'm glad to have lived it all.
Yeah, I love the story.
I've even gone door to door. So there's a salesperson out there in all of us, and I think if
And
you harness it, you'll realize that a lot of these fundamentals and philosophies are things that we use every day in hopes to get influence. So
yeah, no
would love
doubt.
to hear would love to hear other people's stories.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see other stories folks have. I'm sure there's a lot of good ones, so I'm looking forward to it.
I love it. Always a pleasure, Jeff. We'll see you next time.
You too.